This. All right, so here we go. Wait, we are having the first ever Blab with Pinky.
Awesome, awesome.
Hello, everybody. This is Drew Neiser. This is the Elements of Marketing. Let me show you this. Elements of Marketing Blab. We're here to talk about foundations with Bo Seger. How are you, Bo?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm really excited to talk to you because I think what you've done with the Pedigree Foundation is amazing. And I know all about it because you were kind enough to be interviewed for my book. I'm most grateful for you for that. So, but for people who don't know about the Pedigree Foundation, could you give a little overview of how long you've been around and what kinds of things that you do?
So sure. So the Pedigree Foundation started in 2008. It was started by the Pedigree brand dog food, which is owned by Mars Pet Care. We basically have our mission to be, as a company, to make a better world for pets. And what we've done with the Pedigree Foundation is try to help dogs find forever homes. So our mission is to give grants to shelters and rescues with the idea of figuring out new ways, innovative ways, better ways, so that dogs can get out of shelters and get back to their forever home.
I love, there's so much language that's good, their forever home and all of that. Talk about the scope and, I mean, how many dog lives are you touching on an annual basis through the foundation?
Hundreds of thousands every year.
Wow.
Yeah, we basically give grants to from across the board. We have our operational grants, which are $1,000 to shelters and rescues. We have innovation grants, which is people coming up with creative new ways that need to find funding, and through grants to help people with capital needs, or how do we help improve the lives of dogs in shelters. And so we hit hundreds of shelters every year who service hundreds of dogs.
Wow. So if I'm thinking about getting a dog and I want to, I go to a rescue shelter, how does the Pedigree Foundation participate? Or let's say if I don't have enough money to actually feed that dog, or what kinds of grants? And so help me understand specifically how this works.
So with us, there's two types of giving that you're talking about. With the Pedigree Foundation, what we do is we support shelters and rescues. So we're less on the pet owner side.
Okay.
We're more on how do we help these shelters service more dogs and get more dogs out of their care so that more dogs can process through. You might see the brand, and because we are a 501c3, we're not allowed to promote the brand. So we don't promote Pedigree dog food, even though they're the people that started us.
Right.
The brand does do, though, a lot with shelters and rescues. And there are, just in Nashville, Tennessee, this 2 months ago, we had a day where every dog adopted in our area was free. That
Wow.
was paid for by the brand. They also support various shelters and rescues around the country with food,
Right.
Feeding those dogs.
So how many dogs did you in Nashville end up supporting that day?
I want to say there were about 300 that were adopted out that day.
That's really cool. I know that there is an extraordinary number of dogs in shelters. I mean, how big a population are we talking about every year?
Yeah, millions. It's huge.
Millions of dogs in shelters. Wow. Yeah. So tell me how it got started.
The foundation started with the brand, really. Mars Pet Care is a privately held company. We're owned by the Mars family, and our principals are big drivers in our company.
Right.
So we started in 2008 with the adoption drive, and that's really the foundation was in how can we help more dogs get adopted. That morphed into the foundation, which we set up, again, as I said, as a separate 501c3 with the mission of driving adoption for pets.
So I know that in the book we talk a lot about this, about the challenges of setting up and running a foundation. It sounds really appealing. It seems like something that every brand or company should do, but it's not easy, is it?
It isn't easy. It isn't easy at all for several reasons. One, a lot of times as a separate independent entity, our mission is different from the business. They've got objectives and goals that they need to make about selling dog food that we don't have.
Right.
And so it's a challenge to maintain commitment when everyone knows. We're fortunate as a privately held company, a lot of the pressures that are maybe put on public companies we don't have.
Right.
And when with the Mars family, they say my name is on every bag. So what they believe and their social conscience is very important, and it really helps drive our own social conscience in the company. But it's expensive. It's a commitment, and it's a long-term commitment. It's not something that's going to get solved quickly.
So what if you were advising somebody who was thinking about doing this? What are sort of the critical steps at the beginning when you're setting up a foundation that's related to a brand? What are some important things that you need to do to make sure that it succeeds?
The first thing is have that long-term view. Be willing to commit and know up front it's going to be more expensive than you think it is, and it's going to require more time and more energy than you think it is. The challenge out there for whatever you pick as to be your social issue is big, and that's why it needs the focus. And so you've got to be able to commit to it and recognize that it's a long-term problem.
Right. And then the funding for the foundation at this point is that all through the Mars and Pedigree's the product sales of Pedigree?
The Pedigree brand is our biggest donor, but we also get contributions from people all over the country who want to help dogs. And there's two ways that they can do that. We do take donations directly, but we also often the brand will do things that where if people buy product, then the donation is made to us.
Right. So buy the product and do that. And so obviously if sales of Pedigrees go up, so do the fortunes of the foundation. But those two being a foundation and having this independent thing must be tricky, and I imagine you don't want to be dependent on the sales of the product.
We don't. And in fact, one of the things we're trying to do right now is build an endowment so that we can have a separate stream of funding every year. I mean, the problem is when you give money away, there's always got to be more coming in.
Right.
And so what we're trying to build right now is an endowment that will let us have an annual stream of money to make a difference. Right.
And now I recall you're not someone who came up through the dog food business, right?
Not.
Tell me about your background and how you ended up doing this.
I started, and I am a lawyer, and I started in law firms, and then I went to work for a variety of companies, and then ended up at Mars, which was just a great move for me. And the commitment of Mars, I started out with the foundation really as kind of their governance and regulatory person. Right. And it's hard when you work at a company like Mars not to drink the Kool-Aid, because when your whole mission is to make a better world for pets, that's pretty inspiring. Right. And when you're surrounded by animals every day, I mean, people at work, we bring our dogs to work. They are on our desks. They're all around us. I remember when I interviewed, one of the first things they said was, if you have a problem with animals, this is not the place for you.
Right.
And it's a great place to work. So, I was fortunate to be asked to join the board, and one thing led to another. And now we're trying to figure out how do we make it bigger and better and try and impact more pets all over the country and all over the world. So
really, this is about your guilt at being a lawyer and trying to make up for that time.
That's right. It's my own little Christmas carol right here.
Exactly. And I get it. And it's funny. I was, when I first heard we might be able to talk, I was particularly excited. And I know I shared this with you, but literally in 2008, I had a blog before that, but I started the Drew blog in 2008. And my first entry was on the Dogs Rule campaign. Because it did everything that I personally believe is important in marketing, it's, first of all, it's a big emotional idea that dogs rule. But as you dug into the campaign, you found out how deep it went. And I love the fact there were stories, and I think I ended up talking to one of the marketers on Pedigree at the time, but that, or maybe I just read this, that you had some leases for facilities for Pedigree that didn't allow dogs. And
right.
rather than, and you couldn't convince them to do so, so you move the space. And,
Right.
and to me, if you're going to say dogs rule, you better really make sure that dogs rule all the way through. So you have to walk the walk and talk the talk. And so I felt once I heard that story that, okay, either some PR person is really doing spin, or they really do get it. I think that the foundation and how the foundation came out of that is also inspired and smart that they split the two.
So I think it's true. I'm glad you see that. In my role as lawyer, I'm always the cynical person who's always waiting to see, is this just spin or is this real? And at Mars, it really is real.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. I know that you had wanted me to photograph you to have a picture with you and your dog. Tell me about your dog and the role he plays in your life.
So the picture is Barney. We actually have two dogs. We have Max and Barney.
Okay.
When my daughter was 3, I said she could have a dog when she was 6 because that seemed really far away at the time,
right.
Which anyone who has children knows, no, it's not at all.
Right.
And when she turned 6, she wanted a Chihuahua named Sparkles. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. So we looked, and at 7.5, we found Max, and he is a great dog. Mars has a product called the Wisdom Panel. We always said he was a Dachshund Terrier, but he's actually a Dachshund Shih Tzu, which we found which is a genetic test for dogs, which it's an amazing thing. We haven't told him he's a Shih Tzu because I don't know, it might disturb him. Barney, though, is a miniature Dachshund. He is now 6. And is just a lover of people. He is he's not crazy about dogs. He wants to make sure every dog knows that he's not a little dog.
Yeah, it's funny how they take over your lives. You've seen Pinky. I'm going to bring him up one more time. How
long have you had Pinky?
So here's Pinky, and Pinky is a very active part of Renegade's marketing program. Quite accidentally, I put him on our newsletter. We have a monthly newsletter. And this is probably 4 years ago, put his little face and some graphic next to it, and readership went up about 15%. I said, okay, fine. So he's a big asset for the company. We try to bring him in, maybe every 2 weeks, and it's like the best day of the month for employees. But he has his moments. Like, he is really a people person. And in New York City, he's somewhat famous, not as famous as some of the others, because the doormen at the Carlisle and another Upper East Side, I'm going to let him go now, hotel know him by name. And then if they see another French Bulldog, they'll say, oh, do you know Pinky? Which is hilarious. And he does have a habit of actually, he'll, in front of our apartment, because we live in the city, he will stop. Instead of going inside, he will stop and he will stare at people until they stop and pet him and love him. So as far as he's concerned, he is the alpha dog of 77th Street. He is going to make sure that you love him and know him. So he definitely rules in our lives. Let's go back to the foundation. Enough on Pinky. Let's talk about how do you keep this thing growing? How do you keep it fresh and interesting for for your donors and so forth?
It's an interesting issue with dogs. It's easy to keep it fresh because every dog has its own story. Every dog, every time a new dog gets adopted that's connected to us, it's a win. And so you're always winning. You're always finding that great moment that people can really relate to. The challenge for us, I think, is how do we go even bigger? How do we figure out there's a huge need for cats in our country, in shelters and rescues. And there are a lot of people out there that think cats rule, and we need to help them. And so really one of the things that we're trying to figure out is how can we go bigger? How can we really make a difference to the animal welfare community and really help at more than just dogs? How do we get more donors? How do we raise more money? And how do we spread that out in ways that make it really effective for lots of animals?
Right. So, that's interesting. So expanding, of course, that if you expand to multiple pets, suddenly you now have a vast resource need, right? Both more capital, more outreach, but of course more bags of food. Right.
And so, more new pet owners.
Right. And so there must be, that's where it gets interesting with the brand. I mean, you're separate, but you're not. I mean, one could argue, obviously you have to be in lockstep in this sense. If suddenly the brand said, yes, we want to support cats, you're going to need corresponding support on your end, right? I mean, that's
right. So we have to be set up and established to help to reach those donors, first of all, but also the company has to be committed that this is an area that they want to donate to.
Right.
And fortunately, when you have a family as large as the Mars family is getting, they love all animals, and so there are horse people in that family, there are cat people, there are dog people.
Do they make horse food?
We do.
We do.
Horse care.
Horse, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't
see fish food too. Mars Fish Care is also out there. I don't know how you rescue fish though.
Yeah. Well, we were thinking about the other day, because as they were about to drain the pond in Central, the little boat pond, the Stuart Little Pond, there were all these little, like guppies in there. I'm thinking it's not going to work out so well for those. But they could have used rescuing, I'm sure. Anyway. So when we look at, are there some foundations out there that you look to for inspiration?
Sure. There are lots of foundations that are bigger than us. PetSmart has a huge foundation and is really making a difference in the pet welfare community. We like the Banfield Foundation a lot, from Banfield Pet Hospitals. That is more affiliated with us because Banfield is also a Mars company. But those are kind of the two big pet communities. And then of course American Humane and things like that.
Right.
They're really making a huge difference in the pet welfare world.
Yeah, and so I'm going to go back and I want to explore this thing, because this is an interesting conversation in this. A lot of brands and companies will start to look at a new area and they'll say, oh, we could do well in that area, right? But it presents an interesting marketing challenge, because suddenly you have two new targets and you have, again, different messages and so forth. In some ways, having Pedigree Foundation really associated just with dogs it simplifies your life, right?
Right. It does. But we don't look at it from the perspective, especially as the foundation, we don't look at it as a perspective of the brand. We look at it the perspective of the need. Right. And how can you really make a difference? And where is the need the greatest? Where is it being serviced? Where is it not? And how can we come in and make a difference?
Right. So we talked a little bit about the challenges. Let's talk about the rewards. Let's talk about that, and both you personally and then some of the success stories. Maybe you could get granular and talk about some of the, because you mentioned that people are sharing all this stuff, and some of your favorite stories that have happened as a result of.
Oh gosh, the success stories go from the grants that we fund, when you hear back from shelters that are about to close because they don't have money, or from the pictures of dogs that you see that are being transported from high kill states to more adoptive areas. When you see those pictures and you see the picture of the little girl with her new puppy or her new dog, it's such a one-off and such a, like I was saying earlier, it's a win. because you're making such a difference. And I think for me personally, that's what it is. You know, when you think about really what's important to you, it's how do you make a difference, and how do you leave this world in a way better than what you found it. And this really gives us the opportunity to make the world. We believe that pets help us in our daily lives. You were talking about, Pinky and all the great things that you get from having Pinky in your life, and the people around you get from having Pinky in your life. And so it's our obligation to make it better for them. And, and that's really a personal gain every day, every time.
So what's on the horizon for 2016? What are your, we talked a little bit about the endowment, but what are you thinking about?
So we just did our grants for 2015. We gave out about $500,000 worth of cash to shelters and rescues all over the country. That's a lot of work and a lot of timing. So we're very happy about it. Thank you. And the shelters and rescues that we have are very happy about it. So we're gearing up for next year. We start our fundraising again. We start, and like I said earlier, we're looking at it. Are there other areas of need that we can make an impact? We have the processes set up. We have the system set up. We have a great executive director who is really helping us build the systems that we could support other animals if we can find the funding to do it. And so that's kind of an exciting thing to be looking about for 2017 and seeing how we can grow and what we can do to make a difference to more animals.
So yeah, $500,000 is a lot. I've worked with some foundations that have given on that level. What would it take, given the need out there? Because I know that Bill Gates and Berkshire Hathaway folk are all listening in on this, or they'll watch it later. We can email it to them. How much would you need to fund all of the shelters that have needs for funding right now?
Oh, wow. That's such a big number. I don't know. There is such a great need out there. There are so many animals that are out there that are in need.
How about just dogs? Just focusing on dogs.
It's not an annual number. Where we are a drop in the ocean with our $500,000, I think.
Right.
So it's huge.
Because Michael Bloomberg doesn't live very far from here.
Does he know Pinky?
What's that?
Does he know Pinky?
We have seen him on the street, but he has not met Pinky. Although many famous people have met him, just walking. We walk in a nice neighborhood, but we know someone who works for him. So there you go. We could have him brought over to the office.
That'd be great. Dogs are the great equalizer.
I need a big ask from him. But you need to be able to say, hey, Michael, $1 billion, we could take care of, because you could, a different way of looking at this is you fulfilled grant requests, which means you got a lot of grant requests, right?
Right.
Just in terms of what the amount of requests that you got. Relative
to requests we got every year. This year we got just over $1 million in requests.
Okay.
And it's been increasing every year.
Right.
As we've gotten better at our own social media, at our own outreach, so that more people know who we are and we're out there.
Right.
I suspect next year it will double. Our goal right now, if we could get our endowment to 40 million, that would give us enough to start driving more change in what we've got. But even that is like the next hurdle we're reaching for, not the end goal.
Right. All right. So between Bloomberg and Gates and Buffett, we ought to be able to get 40 million, right? I mean,
easy.
Yeah, I think we could get that just from this blab alone. And I'm prepared to auction off anything in this room for donations on behalf of the foundation. In fact, we joked about this. the other day on a blab with a gentleman. We had these microphones that we had both bought for these things, $199 microphones, and he suggested we auction them off for charity. So my charity is going to be Pedigree Foundation, and we will.
We appreciate your support. I'm glad you've been with us since the beginning.
Yes, and I know I've actually sent in some money. All right, now I'm just going to go to the book here for a second because there were a couple of things that we covered. And on a Friday afternoon, I don't always remember every question that. But your chapter, by the way, starts. Let's see, on page 229. No, it doesn't. All right. So I just saw something that I'm a little nervous about. That I may just make me nervous about. You should be on chapter 229 is the answer. So I don't have another question for you.
Where can I buy your book?
What's that?
Where can I buy your book?
Thank you for asking. It's on Amazon.com. You can go to, you can look up the CMO's periodic table on Amazon.com. And you can go to CMObook.com and you can get information there. And I will send you one, however, as someone who is in the book, I will send you a copy and get one to you right away as soon as I can. I think I'm going to get my shipment next week, in fact.
Oh, wow.
So maybe you'll want to auction one off at one of your next, do you do any kind of events to fund? Oh,
we haven't yet. We've been considering how do we do that, but we haven't
yet.
By
the way, I just had a total heart attack on the thing because I had an old version of the book and I'm looking at it going, wait a second, it's in the wrong. Literally had a heart attack looking at the old book. Anyway, here is your chapter, Unleashing Goodwill. Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. So, and that's what I wanted to ask about. Good. I want to talk about how you get consumers involved. How do they participate in the foundation? Are you doing social media? How do you get them excited about the foundation?
So most of our contact is like us on Facebook, Pedigree Foundation. Come to our website, pedigreefoundation.com. See what we're doing, see where we are. It's one of the highlights of my day, and one of the few things I really like about Facebook is that I get uplifting stories about animals all day long. Right. Mixed in with everybody's bad political opinions. It's a great thing.
Now, it's interesting, using social media for fundraising. What I've been hearing lately is that it's very good for building awareness, but very challenging to get someone to go from your Facebook page to make a donation. Have you found in it that you've been able to get people to give money as a result of sort of seeing a post on Facebook? Or
I don't know, just from seeing a post. The good thing is that it lets us, when you like us, it lets us reach out to you. It lets you see what we're doing and decide if you want to support that. It's not going to be a first time thing. The great thing is that you're helping animals. You're helping animals who can't help themselves and who are in desperate need. So it's an easy sell when people pay attention.
Now, I remember when the Dogs Rule campaign was launched, and there was a partnership with the Westminster Dog Show, and they made a big deal about the adoption program. Are you still getting featured in that advertising loop and things like that?
The Westminster moved away from the brand about 3-4 years ago.
Okay.
We were too sad for them, and. And so we don't have that kind of support, and it was a loss for the foundation because it was some great exposure for us and really helped our fundraising a lot out in amongst consumers and amongst individuals. Fortunately, we have social media now that lets us reach a lot of people that wasn't kind of around when that was going on anyway. And so we're trying to drive new sources. We're trying to drive new contacts and new friends.
Now, have you been? Did you study the Ice Bucket Challenge video phenomenon and go, wait, like Where's ours?
No. Yeah, but I don't think you can dump ice on dogs. That wouldn't sell quite as well, you know?
No, no. Yeah, and we've talked to a lot of people about that campaign, and I think it's an interesting thing to think about as we're talking here. That campaign was actually going along under the radar for months and months and months. And then finally in Boston, one of the local reporters on camera did it. And from there, it cascaded. And I think the message and the thought that I want to plant with you, and I've seen this in other, quote, viral campaigns, is usually you need some kind of media to push things forward, whatever that media is, whether it's press, actually being on television, which still is incredibly powerful. And so, I always talk about putting the media in social media. Right. It's an important thing. So if you do come up with it, and I think you know that inherently because when you had the Westminster exposure, that created a lot of top of mind awareness for your activity. Right. So if you do try to come up with some kind of campaign that you hope to go viral, just think about where that media exposure is going to come from, and in an ideal world, it come from the brand would really provide that, right?
Right.
Because it is good for the brand. But and so next time they show you the media plan, they say we're all digital. You say no, we need that TV, and that's from a social guy.
No, that's good. I appreciate the insight.
Yeah, and there's another, even the Bat Kid story, the kid, the Make-A-Wish Foundation story where the kid wanted to
right.
And they went through it. Media really made that thing go, viral in some kind of exposure at a local San Francisco TV station. So it's just interesting how as much as the digital world has enabled things, a lot of time that offline exposure is the spark plug.
Right, the thing that really drives it. Interesting insight.
Yeah, and I was actually at taught social media last night at an NYU graduate school program. We were talking about that case, so it's fresh in my mind. I guess if we were to summarize for people who missed the beginning of this and talk about the benefits of setting up a foundation to a brand. What are the let's just talk about that for a second. The benefits, if you're a brand and you set up a foundation, the benefits to you are?
I think first, it's a social conscience. It's a social issue that your employees can get behind. It's part of what makes your company a great place to work, and that you're making a difference in a culture or filling a need in our culture, and that's engaging to people. People want that now. People want to support brands that are not just about taking money; they're about making our world better. So I think that's number one. I think number two, it's the halo effect for consumers. I think it's for us. If you go into your shelter and you see that this dog has been eating Pedigree dog food and it looks great, and it's active and it's healthy, you're going to keep using that dog food because it's good stuff.
Right.
It just works. And so I think that's really the two big things. It's how do you get awareness for your product, and how do you get awareness for your community and your employees?
Yeah, the trite way of saying it is that doing well by doing good. But I think the more interesting part of that, what you're saying, and I've been talking to a lot of heads of marketing at companies recently, and there's more and more emphasis on employees and making employees feel good about the place that they work. It makes them more loyal. It makes them more likely to share with their friends, and it becomes this truth, as you say. You've drunk the Kool-Aid, so that the doing good well for the employees seems to be really important. And then everybody talks about millennials and how important social social purpose is for the brands that they want to buy and call their brands.
Agreed. And every company should be pet friendly. They should let their dogs come to work.
I think you're absolutely right. It's funny, we had it built into our lease, and
So do we.
We have and where we live, I happen to be on the co-op board, and we do allow pets in the building, but we have to interview the pets because we've had.
Really?
So I'm on the pet interviewing committee, as is Pinky.
That's good. That should be. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. Well, we had a bad dog. One just really didn't like anything. Didn't like people, didn't like dogs, and that was a big mistake. So we now we have to make sure that and that's that's another part of the whole pet world. All right, so we've got the good side of doing it is that it's good for employees, it's good for millennials, it's good for the world. Now let's just talk about and summarize and wrap up. If you're gonna do this, if you're gonna do a foundation. We talked a little bit about making sure you have capitalization, but what else do you need from a commitment from the brand or commitment from the organization to make sure that this can succeed?
The other piece of needing you need the money and you need the people. You've got to get engaged participants, and especially if you're starting it in your company, you've got to have the foundation of your employees that are willing to spend their time, because this is an addition. My job with the foundation is an addition to my day job, and it takes a commitment by not only by the company but by the people working there that they're behind it and that they want to be a part of it and they recognize the value that you're adding to more than just a company, because everybody has their own commitments. And so it is a challenge, especially when it doesn't always, it can't be the first thing on everybody's mind all the time. So you've got to have a lot of people.
Yeah.
The well's got to be pretty deep.
Well, we pet people are I'm friends with this woman who used to work at Pet 360, and they call them pet parents,
right?
And that's really what we are. Now, unlike you, when we got Pinky, our kids were in high school, and our theory was that's the perfect time to do it because that's when your kids can no longer absorb the love that you have for them. You can transfer that over to the dog.
Yeah, and my daughter just turned 16, so I'm not quite there yet. But
yeah, it's you call me in a year. So anyway, Bo, I think that this has been a really terrific and insightful thing and inspiring to me. Jealous that this is a big part of your life. We've been talking about the Element Foundations, which is one of 64 chapters in the CMO's periodic table. I'm grateful for you for being in the book and spending the time with me. I wish you the best of luck in 2016, getting to $1 million in gifts. And let's just get Gates and Bloomberg and Buffett on the phone. And I think they could, it's a rounding error, a couple million easily from them.
I am so aligned. I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.